It turns out, some people think I've stopped flying because I haven't made a video in a while. The reality is, those things are unrelated. Let's fly. So, acro wings are kind of heavy. Their long lines make inflation a chore, and also just inflating isn't, top on the list of design characteristics that are important in an acro wing. So that means they're hard to launch. I would never call out Kyle Mooney by name, but even pilots that are much better than me sometimes blow a launch on an acro wing, and it warms my heart when it happens to them. Alright, so I had planned to do acro today, helis in particular. I wanted to get some more heli practice in, but it might not be the day. Winds aloft are higher than they were forecasted. I just checked the forecast right before launch. Here's the scoop. There's something called the box in acro, and what it is like where you need to stay in this box, this cylinder, vertically oriented cylinder, so that if you throw a reserve, you land in a good spot. If there's no wind, it's very simple. The box is just vertical. If there is wind, that box tilts. And you have to sort of stay here during your acro run so that at any point in time, if you throw it, you'll float to a good place. Now look at my ground, right? There's not a lot of great boxes here. Sometimes I choose over the trees because I'm told that when people land in trees under reserve, at least dense trees, not lightly populated trees, but dense ones, it tends to be inconvenient and maybe even expensive, but not painful. When people land in a field, I sometimes choose that. That's when I threw my reserve, I was over a field. Anything can happen. Sometimes it works out wonderfully and it's all cool. Sometimes, your bones that are supposed to be inside go outside, and that's awful. The best choice is over water with the boat, and the worst choice might be over water without a boat. So there's not a lot of water here anyway. But because the winds aloft are so high, and I'm not sure I can stay in the box, I might be more conservative with my acro today. I really wanted to show you guys my helis and kind of show off, but might not be the flight for that. That's one thing I have about risk. I want to get the Wright brothers quote perfect, but it's something to the effect, here, I'll look it up and get it perfect. So the quote is, "Carelessness and overconfidence are usually more dangerous than deliberately accepted risk." And it ties into something Chris Santacroce told me, not me, he was on a podcast, and he was like, when you do stuff, you have to kind of consciously make a decision, like, all right, I'm about to do a thing, might be cool, might not, but we're not just cruising around unaware of any risk. This is a thing that we do on purpose. And it kind of sunk into me. And when I go to altitude, choose my box, touch my reserve handles as practice, and do all that as kind of a pre-acro routine, it sets my mind in such a way that, I'm not just unaware of what's happening. And by the way, I've got a little altitude left. I don't think acro is the most dangerous thing to do out here. I think what's dangerous is cruising around at between 50 and 200 feet all the time, thinking that it's not dangerous. Let's say we're fishing and we don't want to catch a fish, right? But we're trolling. We're dragging this line through the water, and if we get a bite, we have trouble. When you're 5 feet off the ground or 0 feet off the ground, it tends to be expensive and embarrassing, but not painful and tragic. When you're 3,000 feet in the air, incidents tend to be a really good story, followed by a really safe landing. When you're 200 feet in the air, when you're 100 feet in the air, it feels safe. After spending time at 3,000, going down to 100, it feels like you're almost out of trouble, but you're not. You're actually dragging your line through the water, just waiting for trouble to happen. And if you get one bite, it's tragic and painful. And I've seen it again and again this summer. The common denominator is always low altitude. It could be low acro. It could be just low flying cruising. It could be bad weather that smacks a wing with low flying. It can be a motor out while flying low and the person didn't have a safe place to land. But it's always something combined with being low that gets them in big trouble. And I'm not saying this saying you can't fly low. Everyone knows how much fun it is flying low. I'm saying it so that you convert it from deliberately accepted risk. Convert it to deliberately accepted risk instead of carelessness and overconfidence. We need more altitude. I have one more thing to talk about, and I know my enemy Tom is going to be upset about the length of this video, but let's all hate Tom, right? Can we get an F Tom in the comment section? We had 2 guests on Painkiller already recently, same night, with the same expertise. And that expertise was influencing people. I mean, that's how I see it. What they really do is they have a YouTube channel and they sell used cars. And they sell special used cars, right? So these used cars are going to be Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Corvettes, or maybe older cars like, I don't know, I'm making it up, 57 Chevy. The point is, they sell interesting cars. And their expertise extends to beyond just cars, though, right? They're not selling the car, they're selling the emotion, they're selling the rest of it. And you're probably thinking, yeah, I know this. But it was interesting to talk to them about it, and they kind of opened my eyes, right? Because what they're selling is this, okay, it's not about what they say. That's not the key to it. The key to it is what they hear. They're listening to your problem and explaining how this thing solves it, right? Do you want this part of excitement? What is the hole that you're trying to fill with this purchase? Well, do I have the thing for you right here? And it extends beyond selling cars. They have, both of them, been very lucky in love. And a lot of that comes from their ability to see what the other person needed and explain to them that they were the thing that they needed. And that extends in all kinds of interesting ways. They're YouTubers, right? And I think that if you're successful on YouTube, there's at least some level of influencing people that is your actual skill set, right? You might think YouTube is about the stories or the production value or what you're doing, but a lot of it is making people want to hear what you have to say, and that's a level of influence that these guys just have on lockdown. So I've thought about that, and it's been buzzing in my head a little bit. There's one place where I've always done that well, and it's job interviews. I don't mean to pump my tires too much, but I am a job interview savant, and it's always gone through this pattern. I listen to what they hear, because they're hiring someone certainly because they have a problem, right? That problem might be the previous guy left, a guy just got promoted. Maybe your business is expanding to the point where the person who does this job now has too much of that job, and he needs you to take a part of it away from him. You listen to this, and then you explain how your relevant experience and skill set fits the problem that they have. I've always done this, and I have, like I said, I'm a job interview savant. I really am. It's about hearing what they need and then explaining how you're the fit for that. A lot of people go into the job interview trying to tell them how good they are. That's all wrong. If you go in there and say, man, I type at 110 words per minute and I'm proficient in this skill and I have a degree in that other thing, then there's a very good chance you're not hitting the bullseye because you haven't asked what the bullseye is. You haven't been listening to what they're trying to get. There's a girl I know, and I described her as emotionally clever. She was telling me about this. Her and her husband were fussing at each other, and he was operating like I do, stupid, in that maybe he was trying to win the debate, or he was trying to, change this about her. And she was operating in a much more emotionally clever way. She was on the other side, how do I want this thing to end? What is the exit like on the other side of this conversation? I want him on my team regarding this topic. I want him to see my point of view or understand my pain or whatever. She's not thinking I'm gonna convince him he's wrong. That's dumb, right? That's dumb, and you're playing checkers while she's playing chess. And it's not evil, right? Her goals are not to defeat him. Her goals are to be a better couple on the other side of this debate. And I just sort of sat back impressed. Yeah, this is cool. You're emotionally clever, and you're using it for good, and I value that. I see what you've done, and I try to do it too, but I'm not as emotionally clever as she is. But to hear about how her and her husband operated, it's just a couple of these things have all been tied together in my head at the same time, and I thought I'd share it with you. So that's actually what I came up here to talk about more than anything else. I was like, I've got a thing to talk about while I fly, and that was it. We have a hot air balloon. Always a special day when that happens. I'm gonna lose the smallest amount of altitude. I actually, when I'm down low like this, I'm at 1,200 feet, but call it 900 because, 900 AGL. I keep the wing overs and stuff pretty mild, under 1,000 feet. But we can lose a little altitude. It's a hot air balloon. Always a cool thing. All right, sunset is beautiful. I'm sure it looks crazy on camera because the auto load exposure never makes it look good. I'm almost home, and it was a beautiful flight. I do this thing, I usually run my motor, I just turned it off so I could talk to you guys. And I try not to touch the throttle and then hit my spot landing. I can change my mind if I look at the windsocks, which I obligated to do, but I'm gonna try and put it down like kind of near that windsock in the front yard in front of the tree, unless the wind direction has changed since I got there. So we'll see what I get. Yeah, and the motor, I run it just in case I want to go around. I shouldn't touch the throttle, it shouldn't make any difference, but it's a safety thing. Why not have it running? Just use it as a go around. And then I tend to turn it off about 50 feet above the ground. So that's the plan. Arrange myself in such a way that I don't need the throttle. And I do this every flight. The reason I do it every flight is every now and then your motor does go out. Or every now and then you're in free flight, you didn't even start with a motor. So you gotta get good at landing where you intend to land. Alright, wind directions are looking about the same as takeoff, so we're gonna go with that plan. I am not in love with what I'm doing with my approach right now, but I have enough altitude to kind of adjust. Which is what would happen if I had no motor. Alright, feeling a little bit high. Still feeling a little bit high. I'm flapping a touch, I'm cheating. There we go. And like I said, we should put it down kind of by the golf cart and the windsock. Beautiful. There. And if I had had a real motor out, that would have been a safe landing. Alright. I hope you liked the video. Headed back to the garage now. I like making it.